Hello friends, welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator and another video. It's been a long pause again. I was trying to find the strength to record a video, but if you are following the international news, you probably heard about the earthquake in Turkey. For those of you who doesn't know, I am from Turkey and I was a little bit worried and watching the news and didn't find the strength to record a video up until now. This is going to be the video that I promised with Flight Sim First Officer, where we will take a full flight using the Flight Sim First Officer, but different than what we did in the first virtual co-pilot video. We will use realistic crew operations where the pilot also has some workload. We'll take a look at how it acts. It's already connected to the sim, as you see at the upper left corner, and we'll just take a look at what the pilot does, what the co-pilot does, and how we do the flows, and try to complete a full flight. Currently, we are parked at Edinburgh in UK, and we will be flying Ryanair. It's usually from here, it's an EasyJet real-world flight. However, I wasn't able to find a good EasyJet livery for the 737-800, so therefore we are going to use the Ryanair livery. It will still be okay, and we will get started. Here we are in the cockpit, and we are cold and dark, and we need to establish power, program the FMC, set up the MCP, and complete the performance page of the FMC. That's the pilot's workload, and the co-pilot will do her part. You'll see it when the co-pilot is in. As you see, we are at gate 9 over here, and we have 23 minutes to our departure, so let's get started. We will start with establishing power by turning on the battery by closing the guard. That will provide us with DC power. We will also close the standby power guard. If this is not open for you, I'm using a different cold and dark setup, so that's probably why. We'll arm the emergency exit lights and put the position and strobe lights to steady. So that's the initial. I skipped the safety checks. We have seen that so many times. I didn't want to use more time, and for the sake of the video, we will not be doing the fire tests and etc. as well. However, we will establish power by using our APU. We are not going to use ground power in today's flight, so let's turn the aft fuel pump to feed the fuel to the APU and continue with starting the APU. It's gonna take a while, around what, 30 seconds maybe, for the APU to spool up. I think it's raining outside. I hear some raindrops hitting the airframe. That will make an interesting takeoff if it keeps raining. Now the APU is spooling up. And when we establish power, we can start with the pre-flight flow and see what our co-pilot will do to help us. I'll try to cover as much as I can on what you need to do so that your Flight Sim First Officer or your virtual First Officer helps you as intended. If I'm missing anything, please let me know in the comments. So the ground power is ready. Let's put the generators on bus and we can get some panel lighting in the cockpit, like so, a little bit over on the pedestal too. And while we are here, let's set our parking brakes. Parking brakes are set. Our step trim switches are in the off position now, so we'll turn them on. That's again my different cold and dark setup that I have. Yours will be probably locked and guarded. And we will continue with putting our IRS switches to align or nav so that we can start the alignment. We can Now do our overhead flow or scan. Yaw damper comes on. It takes couple seconds for it to come on if the IRS switches are not in nav. I think this will not come on if I'm remembering correctly. Our co-pilot is also doing some stuff, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But we haven't told the co-pilot to do anything just yet. Over here, nothing to worry about. They will all stay in their current positions right now. We can put the window heat to on position. So we are seeing green lights, so that's working. Electrical hydraulic pumps, they will stay. We are cruising at 35,000 feet, so we'll set that, and our landing elevation is 100 feet. We'll set that too. And while the APU is running for a couple minutes now, we can turn the APU air and put the packs to auto so that we can provide some air to the cabin to start warming up the cabin for boarding. We can turn the passenger signs, that's the wrong one, to auto because we will be boarding our passengers very shortly. Now let's go ahead and ask our co-pilot for pre-flight flow. Alright, our co-pilot is in the cockpit. I'm not sure why we didn't hear the greeting, but let's not worry about that, and we'll go down to the FMC and start programming our flight. First thing, position initialization. We are at Echo Golf Papa Hotel, parked at gate 9, and let's grab one of the GPS positions, and that should start our alignment. Routes, I will just use the route that I downloaded using SimBrief downloader. Oh, that's wrong. Echo Delta Delta Hotel for Hamburg, which is our destination airport, and we can request our flight plan using the simulated ACARS system. I hope PMDG brings this into the EFB when they are ready to implement the EFB. It will make things a lot more easier, and I am hoping for a direct SimBrief integration. So our route is ready. Let's load it, and let's take a look at our routing using the dispatch function of Flight Sim First Officer. So our flight number, it is not going to be EasyJet, so we are going to use Ryanair instead, as I explained at the beginning. But we will keep this same flight number. There we go. We will be departing according to the dispatch from runway 24. And we'll go and select our departure. So runway 24, TLL 6 Charlie is our departure. And we will select our arrival as well. We will be doing an ILS to runway 23 at Hamburg. And our star is Ribs 2 Papa, and Delta Hotel 657 is our transition. All this information is coming from the charts and flight plan routing, so if you are curious where I'm getting this. And we can go back to the route page, activate this, not execute yet, and go to the plan mode and check our flight plan routing by going to the legs page. So if we step through our flight plan routing, we shouldn't see any weird routing or waypoints, and looks like it is looking okay as far as I can tell, and that should be accurate. Right, okay, so that's our routing. So now we can execute this, which will make it valid, and we can go and do our payload. So we go to the FS actions. Our fuel, according to our dispatch on Flight Sim First Officer dispatch page, is 8,157. We will round it up to 8,200. That's our total fuel. payload, we are going to take 175 passengers. And looks like we are going to have 4,375 kilograms of cargo. So we'll split 2,000 to the forward cargo compartment and then 2,375 to the aft cargo compartment. So that's our payload, which means we are ready to do our performance initialization. Zero fuel weight, 61.689er, so we will round it up to 61.7. Our reserves showing a little over 1 tons of fuel, so we will put 1.0. Our cost index is 70. Our flight level is flight level 350. The average wind at our cruise is coming from 308 at 55 knots. And the temperature, if I check the top of climb temperature on my flight plan, it is minus 59 degrees, so we need to adjust this accordingly. Our transition altitude is 6,000, and that's all our performance. We can now do our takeoff calculation. We will derate by using 55 degrees and takeoff 2. That gives us 86.6, which is where I'm trying to get 86. Between 86 and 87 is what I try to aim, because I don't have a calculator. And we'll just do our takeoff. We will do flaps 5. CG is automatically populated, and that's our V-speeds. So what we need to do now is go to the performance data page. We will fill out the temperature, 55, 148, 149, 150. Yes, we will be climbing to an initial altitude of 6,000. That's a restriction if I remember correctly. Flaps are 5 and takeoff 2 is our derating. So when you fill this information, your pilot should be able to use this information for departure briefing. And looks like our passengers are ready to board, but I'm not sure why I'm not hearing the cabin chief or the co-pilot. So let's check the configuration real quick. Audio. Oh, that explains why. So this should fix. Sorry about that, guys, but you didn't miss anything. So alright, so now we are pretty much ready. Our co-pilot set our QNH and doing the checklist, so we can unmute and give clearance for boarding. Clear to board. There we go.
Requested.
Okay. The ground equipment is moving in place. Then the baggage loaders are in place. We should hear GSX asking if we want to board the crew. That's what I'm waiting for before continuing with the setup. Almost there. Now we should hear GSX asking if we are ready for boarding when the stairs are in place and finishes.
Motherboard crew?
Nope, we don't. Okay. So that should start boarding our passengers. And we can monitor that on our Flight Sim First Officer main page at the bottom, as you see here. Alright, so V-speed 150 is our V2. 6,000 is already set by our co-pilot. And we can also check the airport information, and that will give us the heading for our departure runway, which is showing 240. I'm gonna check if that is correct. and we will continue with the pre-flight checklist. Alright, let's see here. Gonna be a minute. And now we should be able to see. Okay, runway 24, heading is 241. Let's set that up. Alright, our MCP is done, our performance is done. We haven't set our trim setting is 6.27. We are about 7 looks like, so we need to pitch forward or change this until we get roughly to 6.27. That's good for me. And while the passengers are boarding, we are ready to do our pre-flight checklist. I will do this with button control, not voice, and then we will do the before start checklist with voice.
Ready for the departure briefing. All right. It will
That's
be a
our
left
departure
SIG takeoff
briefing.
from Echo, Golf, Papa, Hotel, to Echo, Delta, Delta, Hotel. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. We'll be departing on runway 24, climbing via the departure procedures to an initial altitude of 6,000 feet. Standard reject and emergency procedures apply. Any questions?
No questions.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested.
Navigation. Transfer and display switches.
Normal and auto.
Window heat.
On.
Pressurization mode selector.
Auto.
Flight instrument.
Heading set, altimeter set.
Parking brake.
Set.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Checklist complete.
Alright, that completes our pre-flight checklist. Now we are waiting for our passengers to board the aircraft. Fortunately, we are not seeing it, but that's not going to be a huge problem. So let me finish the boarding and we'll continue with the rest of the flight. Alright, welcome back. We are almost done with boarding, waiting for the last passengers to board and last pieces of luggage to be loaded to the aircraft, and we will continue with the before start flow. Looks like we have 3 minutes for our departure, so looks like we are going to be on time. Let's close this. It's because passengers are boarded, it's trying to disconnect the jetway, but we haven't completely finished loading the baggage. So let's check our doors and close the aircraft doors, and our co-pilot will close the baggage doors when the cargo loading is completed. We should see the doors closing very shortly. That's the boarding completed warning from GSX. And the jetway is disconnecting, so we are ready for our departure. So let's do a quick check around to see if we missed anything. Looks like we didn't. We can put in a Mach squawk code here. That will be our transponder code, and we are ready to do the before start flow. We'll do this and you'll see what the co-pilot is doing and what we are responsible for. We will start the clock. Let's do that. And our co-pilot will take care of the fuel, hydraulic, air conditioning and external lights. And set the door lock and the GPU and the chocks if we had GPU, but we are running on APU, so it's not necessary. 1 minute, we are almost there. And we will do the before start checklist.
Dear passengers, this is to inform you the aircraft doors have been
Locked.
closed.
Fuel.
In order to push back on time, all passengers must be seated with your seatbelts fastened.
Set.
All luggage must be stored in the overhead bin or under the seat in front of you. The cabin crew will be passing through to make their final safety checks before pushback. Thank you and welcome aboard.
VR 149er V2 150. Check. CDU pre-flight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Set.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Anti-collision light.
On.
Checklist complete.
Now our co-pilot should request pushback. Hopefully.
Hello, Captain. We are ready
Yep.
for pushback.
There we go. That's our pushback. Not sure what this weird sound is, but let's not worry about it. Let's wait in the cockpit and we will be pushing back very shortly. So that's our departure time, so we are right on time.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted.
So we should be pushing our tail to the right, nose to the left for pushback.
Launching gear.
Tail left, nose right. It should be our pushback selection. We might be 1 minute late, but that's not a big deal. Waiting for the ground crew to complete their operation to start our pushback. Okay. What we said, tail to the right, nose to the left. So nose left is our selection.
Release parking brakes, please.
So parking brakes are released.
Commencing push. All engines are clear. Start at will.
We will, but we need to leave the gate just a little bit. Okay. Start engines.
Starting engine 2.
So our co-pilot will take care of everything from now on until our engines are running and stabilized. She is now starting the right engine, engine number 2, when it reaches 20%. Be disconnected. Or the fuel flow will start. We see the EGT and fuel flow, so that's a good engine start. And the starter valve will close, or it will cut out when we reach to, I think, 20.2% N1. It's alive over here. By the way, I'm not using
Engine
FS
2
traffic.
cut out.
I am using FSLTL for this flight, so all the
Starting engine 1.
AI traffic is injected by FSLTL. FSLTL is also using FS traffic models, so that's why the models are looking a little bit nicer. So she's starting engine number 1 now and doing the same thing.
Parking brakes.
Let's set the parking
Waiting
brakes.
your confirmation for a good engine start.
Okay, we will wait until the engine is started, and from there we can do the after start flow. "30 seconds for engine number 1 to stabilize. We are waiting for the starter cutout. Maybe I forgot to mention, while you are doing the pre-flight, you have to turn on your flight
Engine
director,
1 cut out.
and the co-pilot will turn on her flight director when she is doing that part. Alright, so both engines looks like are stable, and we will do the after start flow.
All engines stable.
Cockpit to ground. We have a
Alright.
good engine start. You can disconnect.
After start flow. So she's gonna set the hydraulic panel, put the generators on the bus, she's gonna stop the APU, set the probe heats. You see packs are coming on again, recirculation valves are going to auto. She's gonna turn off the APU air. When the engine start switches went into continuous ignition, taxi lights are on. She's gonna set the flaps now to flaps 5 and then set her FMC to the legs page, and we will keep ours on the performance page. That's the after start flow completed by our co-pilots. Sorry. Taxi checklist.
Taxi checklist. Generators.
On.
Probe heat.
On.
Anti-ice.
Set.
Isolation valve.
Auto.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Recall.
Checked.
Auto brake.
RTO.
Flight controls. Full left. Full right. Full back. Full forward. Rudder full left. Rudder full right. Check. Ground equipment.
Clear.
Checklist complete.
So that was the taxi checklist. We did the flight controls check by doing full left, full right, full back, full forward, left rudder, right rudder, and we are ready to taxi. So our taxi routing is taking this taxiway, which is, I believe, Foxtrot 1, and then we'll take Alpha from Foxtrot 1 and Delta 1. That's the taxi routing. So let's turn off our parking brake and we should be on our way. A little bit of throttle to get her moving. Okay. All is good. We will taxi to the runway and do the before takeoff checklist when we are holding short at runway 24.
We just wanted to take a moment to welcome you aboard and thank you for flying with us today.
Our
Our
cabin
taxi
crew
to the
is
runway
doing
should be
the,
pretty uneventful, and we're anticipating
announcements.
an on-time departure. Just sit back and relax, and we'll have you in the air shortly.
When we get closer, we should hear the runway awareness and advisory system telling us which runway we are approaching and which runway we are on. That's again part of FSFO, telling us with a built-in RAS system. Okay, that is Alpha 19, Alpha 20, and then we are entering into Delta, and then Delta 1 is the next left, which will take us to runway 24. We will stop for the before takeoff checklist, and we will do it with
Approaching runway 24.
button control. As you heard, that's the RAS system built into FSFO. We'll slow down a little bit and make the turn with 10 knots speed and hold short before entering the runway until we complete the before takeoff checklist. Alright, this is good enough for me. We can now slowly brake and stop here and do our before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Set.
Stabilization trim.
Set.
Checklist complete.
Alright, now our
Flight
co-pilot is
attendants
going
prepare for
to
takeoff.
set our lights, as you see, and we can now line up. And for the rest of the takeoff, I will use voice control, so I might go silent and not speak to you guys because it will confuse FSFO, so I don't want that happening. But please watch along and see how our co-pilot is going to help us with our takeoff. When we reach 400 feet, the co-pilot will call 400 feet. That's when we engage LNAV to follow our flight director. I will be hand flying for a while and then engaging the autopilot. When we are above the thrust reduction altitude, we should tell our co-pilot to set the speed. We don't have a speed restriction, but I will first go to 210 knots and then 250 after making that sharp turn that we need to make on our routing. You will see on the ND when we get there. I'm not sure why we are not moving faster. Let's just give some more throttle to line up on the runway a little bit faster.
On runway 24.
Okay, runway 24 identified by our RAS system. We will pull forward a little bit and then do our takeoff run. Alright, I will call our co-pilot to set the takeoff power, and I'm not gonna touch anything from now on. We will increase the throttles to 40%, and when the engines are stable we will call for takeoff power, and I will just focus on taking off from that point on. Takeoff power. Takeoff power. You need to have the auto thrust on for this command to work, by the way.
Speed alive.
Checked.
80 knot.
Checked.
Retain. 3,000 feet remaining. 2,000 feet remaining. VNAV on. Positive rate.
Gear up.
Gear up. .400 feet. Heading select
LNAV.
on. LNAV on.
Alright, we will
Heading select.
follow.
Heading select on.
LNAV.
LNAV on.
So this happens when you are switching between voice
Acceleration
and
altitude.
button control. Set speed to 10.
Autopilot.
Command A on.
Okay, I'm not gonna fly by hand. If you use voice all the way, it doesn't confuse, but when you switch between voice and button control, it confuses the co-pilot, so that's what's happening here. VNAV shouldn't have been turned on upon departure, but I switched voice control off to talk about something, and that caused this. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
Flaps up. Okay, so now
Flaps up.
we will keep climbing, and we have a 6,000 restriction. As I said, we will maintain 6,000 and climb later on. That is a very sharp turn that we need to make. Hopefully we will. But there we go. Airport should be behind us now. And we are on our way. There is the airport right there behind us. So we'll climb like this. When we get to the transition altitude, our co-pilot will warn us. Maybe we should check that as well. Index performance 6001, because I don't want to change altitude before we pass that restriction. There is the turn. We can increase the range to 20 now. And we should level off. You also see the passenger simulation here saying our passengers are happy, 100% satisfied. Let's put the TCAS on. Our transponder should be at TI array. Our TCAS system should be working and picking up any traffic around us, if there is any. Alright, we made the turn. It's kind of bumpy ride, 46 knot tailwind, which I wasn't expecting, but so be it. And we should be making a right turn immediately after this. We should have helped by slowing the aircraft down, by opening the speed window to make these turns a little bit easier, but that's alright. Let's set our cruise level for the climb. We are on VNAV, so aircraft should maintain 6,000 feet until we are clear of that restriction. You can wait if you like to, but it's not gonna make a huge difference if you are using VNAV, especially in the 737. Alright, we overshot that turn quite a bit, unfortunately, and that's due to our speed. What you can do to mitigate this is change these speeds to 210 knots so that the aircraft can make those turns a little bit easier without overshooting, which I should have taught when we were on the ground, but it's alright. Next waypoint, TLA, is the end of our restriction. There is an aircraft right there, so which means our TCAS system is working and picking up the FSLTL injected traffic, which is great to see, always. And when we pass above 6,000, our co-pilot should switch to standard barometric pressure. And at 10,000, the landing lights, taxi light can come off anyway, but the landing lights and the passenger signs will come off at 10,000. And from there, I will continue flying and bring you guys back when we are ready to descend. I'm just waiting for you guys to see those co-pilot interactions when we pass this restriction. A little bit more. Been a bumpy ride so far. Just a little bit more. I think we should be fine from now on. Let's see if we can spot the aircraft on our left. Maybe he's behind the clouds. It's above us. From the outside view we can see. Now I still cannot see. Maybe the clouds are getting in the way. Oh, we have a master caution. Or what? Oh, that's for the pressurization system. Off schedule descent. We are not descending, but this happens when you are trying to hold an altitude and lose like this due to Microsoft Flight Simulator's unpredicted weather. Let's clear this up. That's no big deal. It should sort itself out when we start climbing again. Interesting departure, I have to say. And looks like we are not able to hold the speed as much as I'd like to hold. The aircraft is accelerating, maybe because it's being pushed by the wind somehow. But that is our restriction clearance, so we should start climbing when we make this turn on VNAV. And we can do the after takeoff checklist while we are waiting.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleed.
On.
Pack.
Auto.
Landing gear.
Up and off.
Flaps.
Up no light.
Checklist complete.
Now the engine mode selectors are going back to off, and our co-pilot finishes the after takeoff flow. And we are
Transition
safe.
altitude.
As you see
Check.
now, standard pressure is set by our co-pilot, and we should be fine until descent when we cross 10,000. That's the last interaction that we will see from our co-pilot turning off the landing lights. Yep, we started climbing nicely. Despite the tailwind we have, that should help us get our destination a little bit faster. Passing through clouds, and there we go. 8,300. Little bit of climb to 10,000 left, and you should see the landing lights turning off. And co-pilot will call passing 10,000 feet. Am I seeing the weather? Or is it the terrain? Because weather is still up in the 737, isn't it? Yes. Alright, 10,000.
Passing 10,000 feet.
And the landing lights are now off. And seatbelt sign should go off as well, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. I have to check my configuration settings. Alright guys, so this is the initial takeoff and climb, and I'll bring you guys back when we are ready for our descent.
The
Oh, the
captain
seatbelt
has
sign
turned off the seatbelt sign.
is turned off.
You're free to move about the cabin, but when
Okay.
seated, please keep your seatbelts fastened as turbulence is unpredictable.
Alright guys, see you when we are descending. Alright, welcome back friends. We started descending way back, and we are currently passing below 18,000. And we will do the descent checklist. I'd like to wait until we pass below 18,000 to do the descent checklist, but I'd like to share what I did before starting to descend. First thing I did was go to the descent page and filled into forecast. That's number one. And then I went back to the index and approach page and filled the landing setting. Flaps 40, 145 is our speed. After finishing this on FSFO, I entered that information to here, VREF 145, and then I selected our transition altitude as 11,000 feet. And we will select the auto brakes 3, flaps full. All these settings are required for our co-pilot to function properly. One thing I think happening here is the transition altitude. We will just do 110, and that should take care of the warning we received just now. And you just saw what I did else as well. We have a couple of restrictions, but let's just continue with the descent checklist. We will use button control for this one.
Ready for the approach briefing. Okay, we're expecting the ILS approach for runway 23. The minimum altitude is 200 feet. We'll use auto brakes 3. We can expect to park at gate 5. In case of go around, we'll climb per ATC instructions on the runway heading. Any questions?
So that
Descent
was the
checklist.
approach briefing.
Pressurization.
Set.
Wiggle.
Check.
Auto brake.
Set.
Landing data.
Check.
Approach briefing.
Completed.
Checklist complete.
Now our co-pilot will enter the ILS frequency
ILS
111.5, and then final approach course is 228, not 229. I'm not sure why it's correctly brought up, but maybe it's the difference between navgraph and sim, but we will correct it. 228. And
From the flight deck again, you've probably already noticed we've started our descent. We're not anticipating any delays and should pull into the gate in 20 to 25 minutes. Until then, just sit back and relax and we'll have you on the ground shortly.
Dear passengers, we are about ready to start our descent. At this time, we need all passengers in their seats with seatbelts fastened and seats in the upright full position. We will be coming through the cabin shortly to collect all remaining trash.
alright, these announcements will get fixed because some of them are not at the right time. We already started descent way back, and now the passenger announcement is heard for descent. And one thing to note here, the minimums is here and it is 262 feet, so I forgot to change that. So make sure you have this minimums selected and changed for the co-pilot to do the approach briefing correctly. But we did the descent checklist. So from now on we will control the aircraft. We need some speed brakes to slow the aircraft down because we are passing below 10,000.
Check.
So we are at transition altitude. The local pressure is set by our co-pilot. We need to slow down to 250 knots, and
Dear passengers,
we also
we
have a
reached an altitude
220
that
knot
requires
restriction
all electronics to be turned off and stowed for landing.
on our landing
You may
pad.
continue to use your handheld phones and tablets in airplane mode. Thank you.
Next waypoint in 14 miles, and we need to slow down to 220 knots. So that's what I'm trying to do here. We are getting very close to 10,000. So let's slow the aircraft down. Because we need to slow down to 220. Yep. Let's open the speed window. We are going to need it anyway, so let's slow it down to 220
The
for
captain
now.
has turned on the seatbelt sign. In a moment, we will be coming through the cabin to collect your trash.
So that's our co-pilot turned on the seatbelt signs when we are getting close to 10,000. Now we are slowed down to 250. The aircraft should do the rest. Let's drop the range a little bit to see a little bit better.
Passing
And from
10,000
here
feet.
on, the landing lights are coming on, as you heard, our co-pilot. And we are all set for our approach and landing. Let's also synchronize our heading with our current heading. As you see, we are already picking up the information. Our co-pilot will call out when we start to receive the localizer. And we are just waiting for that. And we have a 4,000 or above restriction before we can descend down to our final altitude of 3,000. So the aircraft should take care of that. And we should be okay. So that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to go
Glide
down.
slope
And,
alive.
well, glide slope is not alive. I'm not sure where it is getting its information. But so be it. No worries. And just to remember, pressing the center button twice will give you your descent profile on a different screen. If you choose to have that here on your navigation display, you can do that. Alright, we're nicely slowing down to 220 knots. We are on profile. As you see here, we are not deviated too much from our VNAV path. And we're passing through the clouds. Let's just go ignition selectors to continuous. Temperature is 4 degrees, so not too bad. We are out of the clouds, so let's go back. And now we should
Speed brake armed.
slow the aircraft down to 220 knots.
Flaps 1.
So that's our co-pilot doing flaps 1 according to
Flaps 1.
the settings, but we don't want to do that because we have to have flaps up right now. So let's just take control and tell our co-pilot to put the flaps up. Flaps up. I have to keep the voice on for now.
Flaps up.
Because I don't want our button control to interfere with what we are trying to do here. We will maintain 220 knots and keep descending like this. And finally, we should be able to execute our approach. Alright, we are at our final stages of our flight. And we are going to maintain 220 knots for now. And then we will slow down and start extending our flaps. Our heading bug one more time, and we will eventually go to final approach course for the heading when we make the turn. We are coming up to the turn, so let's slow down to 210 knots. That will give us enough time to configure our flaps and configure the aircraft for our landing. We are looking fine on the profile, and we are slowing down to 210 knots, which is fine. After the turn we will start going down to 180 and go flaps 1. And when we are landing, I will focus on the co-pilot and keep the voice control on so that the button control doesn't interfere. I don't like to switch back and forth. So you might hear me just talking to the co-pilot but not giving any information about what I'm doing when that's happening. Set our heading bug. Finally, we can now set the final approach course as our heading. When I'm using my controller, it takes a little bit more time to do that, but we are almost there.
Voice detected.
So sorry about that. That's me trying to keep the voice control on, but let's just focus on landing now. Flaps 1. Flaps 1. Okay, we are
Flaps
going
1.
flaps 1. We can slow down to 200 or 190. We can turn on the approach mode by telling our co-pilot flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
Alright, just a little bit left to fly. Delta Hotel 657 is our initial fix. We are at flaps 5. We will eventually go flaps 10 at the initial fix, and then Pisas is our final fix, and we will drop the landing gear and go flaps 15 and keep extending flaps until we get flaps full. I'm waiting to get down to 4,000 feet to activate the approach mode, and that will be the last thing I'm going to do to land the aircraft. Maybe we configured a little early. We could have stayed at 210 knots until the initial fix, but when recording video, things have a tendency to go wrong, so I'd like to configure early when I'm recording a video. There's an aircraft on our flight path coming towards us. I hope that doesn't turn into a issue. Also, I forgot to mention, I already set our minimums here for our landing. I'm just waiting a little longer to go down to 160 knots airspeed and go flaps 10. And I'm waiting for the Charlie India 23 fix to do that, because we need to get down to 3,000. Arm speed brakes.
Speed brake armed.
So we arm the speed brakes, and all left is just to configure the flaps, and we will be ready for landing. Things are going a little bit slow because I configured early, but bear with me and we should be fine. We will do the landing checklist after everything is configured, and we will use voice, and we will go back to button control for after landing flow and shutdown flow. We are coming up to our final fix. Let's go down to 160 knots. Flaps 10.
Flaps 10.
And we are going to drop the landing gear very shortly when passing the final fix. Approach mode on.
Approach hold on.
And we are ready for landing.
Airspeed low.
Set.
Airspeed low.
Flaps 15. Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Airspeed
Gear
low.
down.
Airspeed low.
Not sure why we are getting airspeed low warnings. We should be fine, but well, I think that's something I haven't seen before. Flaps 25.
Airspeed low.
Flaps
Airspeed
25.
2500.
Flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
Flaps 40. Now we are fully
Flaps 40.
configured. Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Set.
Checklist complete.
Alright, we
Flight
can go
attendants
back
prepare
to
for landing.
button control. We are getting ready to land. It's a little bit cloudy, so we will see if we can see the runway and disconnect the autopilot. Okay, started to see the ground from the side window. We should be fine. All left for us is to make sure we don't have any aircraft on the runway. I hope FSLTL can take care of that, because we don't want to land on top of another aircraft, and that's an issue with the AI traffic in the sim. Any AI traffic for that matter. They fail to detect the correct runway for takeoff and landing. But we are looking fine. So far so good. Still waiting to get a visual of the runway. That's the outer marker beeping. We still have a lot to our minimums, and I'm not gonna disconnect the autopilot before we see the runway or have the runway in sight. Didn't expect this kind of weather, but it is what it is, I guess.
1000.
Checked. Still no sign of the runway. That's a little bit concerning. But hopefully, there we go. I started to see some lights, so we're good. Getting ready to disconnect the autopilot, and we will hopefully stay on profile when we do that.
500.
Okay, autopilot disconnected. 500
Auto
checked.
throttle.
400.
We are a little bit high. We should get back on profile.
Approaching minimums.
Minimums.
Continue.
Minimums.
Still a little bit high.
100.
Okay.
Sync rate. Sync rate. 10.
Speed brake out.
And we are down.
Reverse thrust.
We will manually brake.
100 knot. 80 knot.
And take this next exit to vacate the runway.
60 knot. Reverse idle. Manual braking.
Alright,
Dear
welcome
passengers,
to
welcome
Hamburg.
to our destination airport. Please remain seated until all docking procedures are completed and the fasten seatbelt sign is turned off. On behalf of our captain and crew, we would like to thank you for flying with us. We hope you enjoyed your flight today and hope to see you again soon.
Landing was not my greatest, but let's continue with the after landing flow. We'll circle back through here and use this taxiway to get to our parking position. We are given gate 5 by FSFO. If I want to show you, it's over here, so we will be parking exactly at gate 5. Can taxi a little bit faster. Our co-pilot is starting the APU and taking care of the flaps and other things, so that we can focus on taxiing back to the gate. So far, I think FSFO is a great addition to your simulation experience. It has some bugs, but as I said in my first video, Matt is a very active developer and FSFO is his passion. He will sort those out. He's also listening to his community, getting some requests for future revisions and some ideas from the community as well. And I am hoping it to become a very nice first officer add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator in the near future. So as you see, it's raining and it is like glue in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so we are not able to taxi as fast as I'd like, but it is what it is. We can turn off the flight directors now, and hopefully we will get to the gate. Our gate should be on our right, towards the ends of this section over here, and I'm not sure if it's marked correctly. On the charts it's marked as gate 5, but we will see if it's showing as gate 5 when we get to the gate. I am not sure though if this synchronizes with GSX when it comes to gate assignment. Maybe it is, maybe it is not, I don't know that. We will see. It should be this next turn, which will take us to gate 5. So we will take that turn. Our APU generator should be online by now. Yep, it is. Alright, let's take this right turn. Did I say left at the first? Just a little bit earlier. If I did, I'm sorry, it's the right turn. And gate 5 should be the 5th gate to our right. Oops. Stay on the taxiway. I need to go outside to check the gate. Well, there are no gates over here, which is interesting. So this is default Hamburg from Asobo, but I will just make a right turn over here following this yellow line, and this should be gate 5. Taxi light off. I'll do it myself. And we will just park over here. Slowly but surely. I accidentally clicked the after landing flow, but that's not what I meant to do. There we go. You guys know I suck at parking this aircraft, right? Alright, that should be enough. Let's set our parking brake. And let's do the shutdown flow. Alright, Alright, we are waiting for APU transfer. When the APU is on the bus, we can set the levers to stop or shut down, and our co-pilot should take care of the rest. Alright, there is our shutdown flow. Everything is being turned off. Hydraulic panel, air conditioning panel, window heat, transponder should go back to standby. There we go. And then cockpit door lock.
This parking is too small for your aircraft.
Well,
This
thank
parking
you,
is too small
GSX.
for your aircraft.
We will request deboarding anyway. And the GSX is not going to do that. But let's assume we did not have that problem. And we don't have to see the deboarding. We can just do the shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps.
Off.
Probe heat.
Off.
Hydraulic panel.
Set.
Flaps.
Up.
Parking brake.
Set.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off.
Checklist complete.
Alright, that's
This
the...
parking is too small for your aircraft.
Let's not worry about this. The FSFO is trying to request deboarding, but when your aircraft or airport profile doesn't match, you get this kind of warning. Let's just do the secure flow. Alright, the co-pilot is now securing the aircraft, shutting down the APU, and then setting the external lights. So the APU is stopped, and that's about it. The last thing we will do is just turn off the last fuel pump that was on, and then turn off the emergency exit lights, and maybe just do this like that, and turn the batteries off. Alright, welcome to Hamburg, and I hope you enjoyed this full flight with FSFO. I enjoyed every moment, and I'd like to use FSFO as much as I can. And when I'm flying, it helps a lot. And if you want to go and pick it up for yourself, the link will be in the description of this video. And let me know how your experience is with FSFO if you choose to use it for your flight sim experience. Thanks for being here with me, guys. I appreciate your patience, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.